Welcome.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, here we are.
You know,
Here we are.
I never,
Everybody,
just so you know, I never knew that this would happen, and I was just speaking with my business partner, who is a lawyer, a seasoned lawyer.
Yeah.
And
like
I
a
woke
real
up in the
lawyer,
middle of-
right? Not like one of those hillbilly lawyers. Right?
No. He's a real corporate lawyer, and I
Okay.
woke up in the middle of the night. Sort of, it's how my brain works. It's sort of like a train going through all the time. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I thought about this separatism movement, and I thought, that there must be a way to turn this into a positive narrative, into something that that everybody wants to be part of. And I thought, well, what if I filed a question that is positive? And what if I filed it first? But I didn't know whether they filed theirs or not. But I called my business partner, first thing in the morning. I said, "Hey, John, if I was to file this question and it was a positive question, and if I was the first one, would that make my question that question and preclude everybody else from asking their question?
Mm-hmm.
And would my question meet constitutional requirements?" And he says, "Well, let me get back to you." And he got back to me a little while later and says, "Yeah, it seems like it would." So I withdrew $500 from bank and went to Elections Alberta and filed my questions. And who knew? They never filed their questions.
Thomas Lukaszuk is joining us on the Dean Blundell Show. Yes, Pamela, hi, how are you? Kat, nice to see you again. We're just waiting for people to come in. Large Canadian audience, massive American audience. The majority are in America, but Thomas is in a province that wants to defect to America. Thomas is in a province that has been captured by maple MAGAs. Everybody in the United States, you're familiar with MAGAs? Well, we got maple MAGAs up here, kids. We got Canadians that are parading around I want to make America great again, and also want to make a province in Canada American, or at the very least, leave Canada, because we'll get to those reasons. But Thomas is the former deputy premier of the province of Alberta, and he is currently on his own. I know you'll say with other people, because the entire province of Alberta is firmly behind this movement to battle separatism. It's called Forever Canadian. Just kind of recapping to start the actual show, talking about what went into him getting his referendum question in before the separatists, who started the referendum questioning, who started the movement to separate, could get their paperwork in, because, well, hillbillies don't like doing fucking paperwork. But we'll get to that and much, much more. Thomas, really grateful that you're here with me today to explain this to people. Before we get to the separatist movement, your province was also named the measles capital of the world this last week. Province of Alberta.
We are winning. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, communicable diseases. The measles factory, which is known as Southern Alberta, if you go over the numbers, I think close to 1,425 cases, active cases in the province of Alberta per capita. That is more measles than anywhere in the world, including the United States, which is going through its own outbreak. Are you dodging the measles, or are you vaccinated? Like, how are you doing out there?
Well, it's sad, because there are many medical conditions that were eradicated, as you know, throughout the world for years, and Alberta was part of it. But this narrative since COVID about doubting vaccines, and there always were people who were not sold on vaccines. But when you have a premier of the province, which for your American audience, that's like governor of a state, actually buying into this and withdrawing all public health announcements about the necessity of vaccinating, and actually not willing to support vaccination, those who are against vaccination sort of feel empowered and have a platform from which to indoctrinate their own beliefs, and unfortunately fewer and fewer people are vaccinating, and we're seeing the results. And you and I can laugh about it, but it's not really funny when you think about it, because there are children dying. Some of these medical conditions are lethal, particularly for infirm people, for elderly people, for small children, and it's just irresponsible. but it is what it is. This is where we're at, and you're right. We have Maple MAGA, and these are sort of wannabes who think that this is the way to become popular. This is the way to get elected, and they sort of follow some of the rhetoric of Trump and his team, and these are the consequences.
Mm. Yeah, and they're absolutely fucking devastating consequences for kids. We joke around a little bit. I call them freedom sores because the freedom crowd is the one that doesn't want to get vaccinated. The people that have bought it hook, line, and sinker. You also have a very serious issue with religious extremists out in Alberta that are driving this bus and supporting Danielle Smith. She is the province's premier right now. She is at the best of times a Luddite when it comes to actual medical treatment and embracing science, embracing data. She's never done it fucking once. She doesn't care who dies in that province. She doesn't care as long as she stays in power and she continues to feed her base and her donors. As long as she stays in power and she continues to appease the oil industry and executives and religious extremists that are currently in her party, that are running her party. Some would say holding her hostage, some would say not. But that has led to a massive split in the governing party, which is the United Conservative Party of Alberta. And you don't have the United Conservative Party as a party now. You have factions of it.
Fractions. But we should sort of let's break this down a little.
Yeah.
Because the group that's pushing separatism in Alberta in itself is broken down. Some want to create a new country. Some refer to it as the Commonwealth of Alberta or the Republic of Alberta. Some are pushing towards 51st state, which means becoming yet another state of the United States. But this group of
some Americans in here listen to the first part of that. They're like, you can keep your province.
That's right. But this group of people are actually the very same group of people who initially were trying to spread fear across the province of Alberta that government of Alberta is going to expropriate land and take away people's guns. That's how it sort of started, and that was as far back as 2008. Mm-hmm. And then it sort of morphed into anti-vaccination during COVID. And then it morphed into truckers' convoys, Ottawa, Coutts, Alberta, blocking borders. And it was sort of dissatisfaction.
Setting up little towns and ditches on the highway. Yeah.
That's right. And there was even a movement of yellow vests, which came from France, from Europe. And now it is around separation. So it's the same people. One of them is Dr. Modry, for example, who's been sort of through this entire thing, but they're changing the areas of focus. So that really broke down. So it's same group, different causes, different, and they can't even agree on who they are, like whether they want to be 51st state or whether they want to create a separate country. But it's feeding that anger machine. I call it Team Angry. Because, there is a certain segment of Alberta population that is not happy with interprovincial relations, with the way the province relates to Ottawa, to our capital city. And that's fine. And that always has happened. Quebec had the same issues. Other provinces at different time had those issues. But now this has sort of become a platform for feeding anger. And it is resonating, and we need to sort of put numbers in perspective. It is 100% resonating with about 10% of Alberta population. These are the people that if you gave them a form and say, sign here, and we're separating, whether it's 51st state or a new country, they would sign on it in a minute without even...
It'd be an X, though, because they can't read or write, but yes, correct.
Well, put an X there. Yeah, in most cases, you're right. I love you, Dean.
It'd be a fucking thumbprint. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there is another maybe 15% of Albertans who are sort of intrigued by this idea. And they're saying, use it as a leveraging mechanism. If you can extricate better deals out of Ottawa or other provinces, use this as a threat. But they're not really serious. They would never really sign it. But the rest of Alberta, 75% or more, totally want nothing to do with it for a number of reasons. Number one, we're proud Canadians. And number two, we know what economic damage, even talking about separation causes. We saw what happened to Quebec, and I always use this example because most Canadians can relate to it. There's a reason why Bank of Montreal has its headquarters in Toronto right now. They packed up and left Quebec during their separatist conversations. We know what happened during Brexit. London, England, and UK, their economy just tanked. Same thing is happening in the Basque region in Spain. So business wants predictability, and if there is any leaves.
Go ahead. Sorry, thought I lost you. Go ahead.
So that is, that is another reason, and the third, sort of major reason is that most Albertans know that this just doesn't make any sense. If you think that you had a hard time building pipelines from landlocked Alberta through British Columbia to Pacific Ocean, now imagine building them if you're a separate country. They have this fantasy world where they say, well, we're going to keep Canadian passports and Canadian currency, but we will be a separate country. We will still use Canadian embassies, but we will be a separate country. We will pick the benefits and services of being Canadian, but at the same time, we will be a separate country. It makes no sense whatsoever. But those who are passionate about it, and that's all it is passion. They don't sort of follow that logic. They don't ask those questions. So there is that 10%, in a province of nearly 5 million people. So there's that 10% of people who actually buy into it.
Yeah, and for our American viewers, and we have lots of you here today, and generally speaking, that is my audience. I want to break it down in ways that they can understand, right? The very same small group of assholes, low IQ, angry, religious, special interest assholes, oil, religion, extremism, lobby groups, the very same people that have captured the United States of America and are turning the clock back and getting rid of and gutting, your pandemic offices, getting rid of and gutting science and research, getting rid of and gutting anything to do with protecting citizens from illogical, unhealthy situations. That is exactly the template that is currently being run in one province in Alberta. You could probably put, Saskatchewan in that mix. They seem to be a little quieter, and there's only 900,000 of them there, so no one really gives a shit. But Alberta is a massive economic engine, and Alberta is a Canadian province full of, as you point out, very proud Canadians that have seemed to, really identify with what you're doing. Forever Canadian. We'll get to the separatist movement.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Let me stop you here.
Yeah.
We have to be very cautious with speaking about the oil industry, because that is actually one of the most misunderstood industries, even in Canada.
Okay.
So if you go to Fort McMurray, which is where all the oil sands are, the large players, the guys who extract 90% of Alberta and Canadian oil, want nothing to do with separatism. This is foreign investment from France and all over Europe, all over the world, a lot from the United States, predominantly from the United States. They want stability. They love working in Canada. They love our laws and regulations. And they will not in any way affiliate themselves with any of this. We're talking about very large contingent of oil companies, but they're small companies. They totally amount to about 10% of oil extraction, and those are the servicing companies. That's where you see a lot of those sort of pickup trucks with with bumper stickers telling the Prime Minister of Canada to F off and all this kind of stuff. But it's not fair to say that it's the oil industry.
Okay.
Because 90% of oil is extracted by large companies, and they're just great players, and we love to have them here. It is a lot of these small players and the service industry that sort of is part of this anger. Those are the guys that have a welding machine in the back of a truck and a whole bunch of stickers or a flag, on their car, on their truck. That sort of they almost co-opted the messaging of the oil industry because they really don't represent the oil industry. But they managed, because of their anger and with how vocal they are, they managed to somehow capture the messaging of the oil industry. And I have to tell you, I'm very disappointed with some of the large companies because they should pull this back. They should say, wait a minute. We really invest in this province. It is us who extracts most of the oil, and we don't buy into this messaging. But right now, they're sort of sitting back. They don't want to get into politics.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, right? Because they hold so much sway in the province of Alberta financially. The economy, the backbone of it is oil and natural gas, and it is a massive energy producer, not just in Canada but in North America. I've lived there. I was there for formative years of my life. I love the province of Alberta. The people of Alberta are beautiful people. 75%, as you point out, of people in that province want nothing to do with separatism. So you've really found this kind of sweet spot with your Forever Canada, Forever Canadian um, uh, d- group movement. I don't know how you would describe it, but what went into when you started to see sort of the separatist rhetoric pipe up again, and then you saw Danielle Smith effectively say, "We're going to change the rules around referendums so that we can actually take a vote with." 10 to 15% of the required signatures needed to be able to hold a referendum to talk about separatism, because that's the part here that I think gets a lot of people really angry is how
Yeah.
far the Maple MAGA premier of the province of Alberta is going to force the hand of 80 to 85% of the people in that province without their consent.
Yeah. Well, since you mentioned religion, she's sort of playing the Pontius Pilate, right? And she doesn't want to do the killing, but she gives them all the tools that they needed, that they need to conduct it, and then she wants to wash her hands and say, "I didn't do it." So she will neither commit to being anti-separatist. No reporter can ever get her to say that, but nor will she say that she's pro-separatism. So she developed this phrase that says, "I support sovereign Alberta within United Canada." Now, I don't know how much
What does
English
that
that she
mean?
studied. It means nothing. That's like saying I am single within the bounds of my marriage. It really means nothing. It's nonsense. But what she's doing is she's sort of messaging to two groups. She's saying to one group, "Oh, look, I'm for sovereign Alberta." So they say, "Uh-huh, she's our lady." But then she says within United Canada. And the reason she's doing that is because Alberta government, the leading governing party, the United Conservative Party, has a problem. In her government and in her cabinet, she has at least 14 elected members who are openly pro-separation. She cannot afford to lose them. And even though, as I said earlier, there are only about 10% of Albertans who are serious about separation, in her party membership, that percentage is much higher. It's probably over 30%. She cannot afford to lose that voting base. So she's dancing this very uncomfortable dance between the pro-separatists and the severely normal people in her party, to try to appease them both without taking either side clearly. So what she has done is she has amended legislation. She has allowed for a citizen initiated referenda, but she made it easier for separatists to achieve that threshold by lowering the number of signatures and extending the period of time during which the signatures can be collected. But her intention was completely to change those rules for separatists, not for anybody else.
So how did Forever Canadian scoop in? Because one of the biggest stories here in Canada for my American friends and for Canadians who are unfamiliar with what Thomas is doing, he's leading a movement called Forever Canadian. It's a pushback against the separatist movement, but it's also a strategically brilliant opportunity and you've taken advantage of it. Tell me how that worked. We talked about it off the top, and tell me where this started.
Well, I was watching very carefully what these separatists are doing, and there is a lawyer by the name of Jeff Rath. and few other players. I mentioned Dr. Modry, who have been
Jeff
active.
Rath looks like diabetes in cowboy boots, by the way. Just to let everybody know, this guy is a lawyer, and the Law Society complaints on his record are a fucking mile long. Like it's like he's like every member of every extremist, MAGA, separatist, I'm going to say it, white supremacist group that gets angry because the world is not theirs anymore, and so he just goes full on and he asks for incredibly stupid things. And like I saw a video of him begging Donald Trump to invade Canada. No word of a lie. That's Jeffrey Rath.
Well, yeah. So that's your description, and I can neither confirm it nor deny it. But he has actually taken the effort to even fly to Washington and negotiate what would it look like for Alberta to join the United States. Now, he has been leading this movement, and they were holding town hall meetings across Alberta, and in some parts of Alberta, the sort of more conservative parts of Alberta, they actually had a pretty decent turnout at these town hall meetings. So I was watching this very carefully, and like everything in life, things just sort of happen when you least expect them to happen. And one night, I was particularly concerned about it, thinking about it, and I thought, well, maybe one should file a question with Elections Alberta for a referendum that isn't pro-separation, that is actually pro-unity and is positive in its makeup. And would this question then in any way preclude the separatists from proceeding with their campaign? Having given this some thought, I actually called my business partner, who is a seasoned corporate lawyer, and I said, John, if I was to file this question, and assuming that they haven't filed their question, would my take precedent? And would it be the question that would be actually accepted? And would it preclude the other questions from going forward? And my partner reviewed my question and looked at the Constitution and all legislation and said, yeah, if actually whoever would file the question first, and if the question was to be accepted by Elections Alberta, that would preclude any other questions. That would be the question on the ballot. And as a matter of fact, it would preclude any other questions for 5 years to be filed. So, you take a chance. You always say, I wish someone
You
did.
sneaky bastard.
I wasn't. It turned out that I was. So first thing in the morning, I drove to my bank. I withdrew 500 Canadian dollars, went to Elections Alberta, and I filed my question. And about a few days later, I received a letter and said, your question is accepted, which means no one else has filed a question, which really, I have to tell you, made me very happy, obviously, but made me wonder, because these guys were working on this for 2 years. They traveled. They had this dog and pony show. They had town hall meetings. They had their question. They actually had an unveiling of their question on a big billboard, and they raised a lot of money. Believe it or not, few days prior, they actually even contacted me and asked me if I would be a keynote speaker at one of their town hall meetings, which I imagine wouldn't be a very pleasant experience. And they offered to pay me $10,000 to appear as a keynote speaker, which obviously I declined.
You wouldn't take that 10 grand. I got to stop you. We need to back up in a minute. And I just need to stop here. You didn't take their money and then go and deliver a sermon? You wouldn't want to do that? That's where you and I are different.
I could not do it. And
that's low road. I love the low road. I love it.
I still wonder where their money comes from. Having said that, it makes me wonder why they did all that but never filed their questions. So, like the saying says,
so they didn't file
one job.
They didn't file. You have one job. It's like the only thing they've been doing for 2 years. They're raising hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to be able to separate. And the first trigger in that separation is to get a question into Elections Canada for the referendum. And they didn't do it. Is that what you're saying?
Well, your American friends will appreciate that the founding fathers, if you didn't study history, at least watch the musical Hamilton. It's a great play.
Oh, it's awesome.
Those were brilliant people. When they were drafting American Constitution and when they were putting a country together, these were some of the brightest Americans ever. Well, these guys are also trying to put a new country together, and they can't figure out that they have to file a petition, So I certainly hope that some of their followers scratch their heads and say, well, is this the new first president of the Republic of Alberta if he hasn't even figured out that he has to file a petition? I don't know. That's for them to worry about.
Oh, I think you do know, dude. Like, I'm laughing because it's funny. I know separation and the unity of Canada is no laughing matter. But like as you point out, you got one job. You're a separatist movement. You're a separatist premier. You're a separatist government that hates Canada. And you built up this momentum for 2 years. You put out fucking billboards, right? TV commercials, graphics, entire social media campaigns. And you go in, hand in the question. They still hadn't done it to that point, and now they're shut out of the process. Is that what you're saying? They're like, were they looking around at it?
So now my question is going ahead, and I have to collect a prerequisite number of signatures. I probably will have to play by what we refer to as the old rules, because Premier Danielle Smith amended the rules to make it easier for separatists. But I filed my question before the amendment came into power, which is fine. I have no issue with that. So my question will be the question that the petition will be asking Albertans to sign, and if, and not if, but when we get the number of signatures, which we will, that will be the referendum question.
When does it start? When does the signatures gathering start? When does the support for this start? Where can people go to get information on it, especially if you're in the province of Alberta?
So it's a very well-regulated process. And I have to tell you, I have a lot of respect for Elections Alberta, because they never dealt with this before. As a matter of fact, this piece of legislation that allows citizen-initiated referenda is nowhere available in Canada. So in a way, there's almost like building an airplane while flying it. So they're putting the rules together. But we will be launching our campaign at the very beginning of next month, of August. And then we will have, I imagine, 90 days to collect approximately 300,000 signatures. We believe that those will be the rules that apply to us, but we're still awaiting for Elections Alberta to declare what the rules will be. Now, how it works, it's the old-fashioned pen and paper petition. So we will have hundreds of volunteers across the province collecting signatures from Albertans, and they have to be electors, which means they have to be over 18, they have to be citizens, they have to live in the province of Alberta to sign the petition.
Start of the month website. Where can people go for more information before we get to the rest of it?
Yeah, website also is being launched probably within the next couple of days. We're building it, and much like Elections Alberta, we are building our campaign. We only have 1 month to build the entire campaign, and it will be a massive campaign. So a website is being constructed as we're speaking, but I have to tell you, the moment I put out on social media that I filed my petition and my petition was accepted, we registered over 600 volunteers that one day. Over 600 volunteers saying, how can I collect signatures on the petition? So Albertans are excited. And because they are proud Canadians. That's number one reason. But number two, they were looking for something positive to be a part of. This separatist narrative and what we see on the news every day, and both from Washington and other parts of the world, from Kyiv, from Moscow, and everywhere else. This is actually something positive, where you can wave your national flag, say, I'm a proud Canadian because my grandfather fought in the war, or my cousin or uncle or dad fought in Afghanistan, because of the fact that I immigrated here and I am a refugee in Canada, and Canada gave me a second chance at life, which is my story. There are a number of reasons why we're proud to be Canadian. And people just want to be part of that.
Yeah, for everybody listening and watching, Thomas is a immigrant from Poland. Came over in the middle of the night with his family. His tanks were rolling down the street, and his dad's like, "We got to get going." Didn't know where they were going. They ended up in the beautiful country that we call Canada, the freest, the strongest, the truest, and became the deputy premier of the province of Alberta. And this is his way of giving back. Listen, one of the things that I need to ask you, because I read somewhere that after you got your petition question in before Danielle Smith, not only was the UCP up in arms, the entire separatist movement came after you, number one. And then Danielle Smith said something to the effect of, the Maple MAGA premier said something to the effect of, she's going to allow your referendum question? Does she have a choice but to allow it, or is that just dictator fucking bullshit?
Yeah, that's it's our Premier Danielle Smith probably not understanding the legislation. She makes these
Shocker.
mistakes. She makes these mistakes every day. It's unfortunate, but she doesn't quite understand what the powers of her office are. And one of the powers that she doesn't have is she cannot stop this petition from moving forward, and she doesn't have a choice whether she wants to follow it or not. This is actually handled by Elections Alberta. It's totally independent of government, and it's an electoral process. So it's going ahead. She has no choice. Now, yes, separatists are very unhappy with me. If you follow any of them on social media, they came up with some choice names. Little Tommy Commie is one of my favorite ones, and I laugh because if they knew the history of my family, they would realize how ridiculous they are. But the fact is, I think they're getting pressure from their own support group because, I don't discount anybody's anger. If you're angry, you have a right to be angry, and I wish I could present you with facts and change your mind. But if you still are angry, that's just the way it is. But there is that 10% of Albertans that actually believe in it. These are lawyers, these are medical doctors that are leading this group, and a lot of these people are sort of looking up to them, and they see them as leaders. They see them as the next government of the Republic of Alberta. And now that they're seeing that simple things like filing an application with Elections Alberta wasn't done, they are getting a lot of pushback within their own group, and there are people who donated money, actually a lot of money, because when I watch their spending patterns, there's money flowing into their accounts, and those people must be asking them questions. I'm investing in you. I had hopes for what you're doing, and really, you forgot to file an application. So they're mad, and they're taking sort of this, this page out of Donald Trump's style of campaigning. Donald always has a name for everybody, for Hillary Clinton and everybody else. There's a nickname. So they're doing the same thing. They're sort of trying to mimic this sort of populist campaigning style. I don't think it's working for them. There is very little appetite for that here in Canada. And I think they're starting to look foolish. But you know what? I've been in politics for many years. I was elected for nearly 15 years, and I never underestimate my opponents. And in a sense, they are my opponents. So I simply will I'll be laser focused on what I have to do. And now my job will be to collect signatures, and we'll get it done.
I know you will. I mean, you're talking about a group of people that, spent way more time gaslighting and raising money than doing actually the business of what they said they were there to do, right? And all you had to do was call your lawyer, take a few $100s out of the bank, go and file a question on a certain date at a certain time, and you're in the driver's seat. Real Canadians in the province of Alberta are in the driver's seat. It doesn't take away from a lot of the fear that's in Alberta. You talk to fair-minded Albertans, and they're like, "My God, like what is happening to my province?" And you talk to fair-minded Canadians that love Alberta or spent time in Alberta. Alberta's a transition province. A lot of people go there to make money, and then they leave and go to other provinces. But all the people in Alberta seem to be rallying not just behind what you're doing, but they seem to be taking, like fair-minded people seem to be taking a little extra time to be able to clarify misinformation, which is really, the biggest reason Alberta is trying to separate. The biggest reason why separatism has any gas whatsoever. It's disinformation, misinformation about equalization payments, about pension plans, misinformation about fucking vaccines, mixed information about mandates. And I'm not talking just about like nuanced misinformation, pure lies that if you looked what happened in the United States with Donald Trump over the past 10 years and in a post-truth society, I feel like the province of Alberta is largely captured by disinformation where, the fair-minded people are like, okay, wait a second. Like, and these are 50, 60-year-old people that are like, don't even know how equalization works, don't know anything about pipelines. They've just been fed these stories that Ottawa hates you. We give them money. It's a crazy time there.
you're making a very good point, and I honestly don't believe that any of this is about separatism and setting up a new country. None of this was about vaccinating. None of this was about blocking borders. All it is an effort to destabilize our
Mhm.
democratic institutions. So, I want you to be angry, Dean. I want you to be angry, and I don't give a damn why you're angry. Whether it's your noisy neighbors, or whether it is your family, or whether it is your boss, I just want you to be angry, because as long as you're angry and you believe that I am the only guy who understands your anger and is willing to address your anger, you will follow me. And I will find any reason for you why you are angry, and I will feed into that, because then you say, okay, finally I have an ally. Finally, somebody understands me. Somebody sort of taps into my anger, and now I'm following that group. And you feel that you're part of something bigger, because then I'm gonna find you 30 other deans who are also angry about the same thing. And now you say, well, okay, so now I'm not the only one. There are others like me. So now I'm part of a movement. So that's all it is. And when the separatism thing ends, I'm willing to put some money on this too. There will be something else. I don't know yet what it will be, but there will be something else that they will tap into. Because obviously separatism is not going to work out for them. I think there is a bigger question, Dean. And the question is, um, who are they? Who's funding them? And why are they doing this? Because there are certain patterns that are happening. Brexit was about separatism, separating from European Union. None of it made sense, and immigrants were used as sort of scapegoats in that. Now, who really wants European Union to fall apart, to be dysfunctional? Whom would it serve if European Union was to fall apart? Well, we know Russia is definitely one of the biggest beneficiaries of a dysfunctional European Union. Who would it benefit if democracy in the United States fell apart? Whom would it benefit if Canadian institutions and provinces started fighting among each other, and our system was to fall apart? So, there are mechanisms covertly and overtly feeding this anger,
Mhm.
and supporting groups that are trying to create movements based on anger and destabilize our institutions. It isn't a coincidence that now we have this massive movement against migration, of immigrants from certain countries to other countries. It isn't a coincidence that all of a sudden separatism is a big issue, as we saw with Brexit, and we see right now in Alberta and in other places in the world. This whole movement against vaccines was pretty well coordinated as well. So sort of these waves happened, and unfortunately, a lot of people are just pawns in this game. They are unhappy. Things are not going as well as they should in their lives. Can Alberta's relationship be better? Could be better with Ottawa? Of course, it can be better. And there are ways, civil ways, within our legal structures to negotiate those things. We always have. But separatism is not an option. But when you have no other options, and somebody brings you this, all of a sudden you grab onto it, and you tend to gravitate towards it. So, as important as it is locally, we're talking about geopolitics over here right now, and and
Mhm.
and there are players internationally, and Russia is one of the main players right now internationally, who are feeding this beast and this machine, both financially and through social media. Ever since I started Forever Canadian, I have to tell you, I have these bots that have 2, 3 followers on Twitter, or X, if you wish, right now, just inundating my account with comments. Right? Who's paying for that? So those are the sort of questions that we should be asking ourselves. And as Canadians, we have to be rational. We have to sort of take a step back, settle down, and ask ourselves some rational questions. Really, do you think that landlocked province would do well, surrounded by Canada? Do you think that if you separated from Canada, Canada would still give you all the benefits of being part of Canada, but you can keep all the revenue as if you weren't in Canada. Life doesn't work that way. And I think that is why, more than 75% of Albertans support Forever Canadian, because they know that this is irrational. It's just sort of frustration being vented. But having said that, and sorry about my monologue being,
No.
we shouldn't be ignoring frustrations. People are frustrated, and we should be dealing with that. We should be addressing it. We should be speaking with them. We should be reaching out to them. We even though it's a lot of fun to laugh at them sometimes, but we some of those frustrations we have to take seriously, because if we don't, guys like Trump, guys like Jeff Rath, and others will endear themselves to them, and then they become their tools.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, I think there's two schools of thought there, right? I think if you've dealt with, disinformation, misinformation, farmers of that, the kind of person that believes that and then occupies the city of Ottawa for 3 fucking weeks, I don't have a ton of empathy. I really don't. I mean, these are people, we all have problems. Life is hard. I don't externally blame anyone for anything that happens to me. Chances are I had more to do with things that happen in my life than anybody else, not the government, not the bank. I mean, generally speaking, we're our own problem. So, but there seems to be an inordinate amount of people in the United States right now and behind this separatist movement that are absolute fucking victims. And they take that victim ideology and they transpose that and then attach it to any kind of group that'll make them feel like they're part of a group, right? Any kind of individual or idea that makes them feel like, hey, I got a home here. And that's generally what this is. All aimless, all based on disinformation that has been parroted from Russia, that, Canadian politicians, specifically in Alberta or MAGA, are taking advantage of, baking the brains of these beautiful people that are just trying to fix their lives, just trying to get by. And I think that's the really frustrating part for me, is lost in that humanity is all of these people that are on this separatist train are marks. Generally speaking, in politics, that's what the population is a mark to be influenced for a vote. It is, and there are very few people that are as altruistic about their career in politics as you are. You're a good man. You've got great character, great values, which is why I love talking to you. And I know people on the conservative side that feel that way. I know people on the liberal side that are like that, but there are very few of those people. And I think the really interesting part about the separatist movement, specifically in Alberta, knowing what's going on in the United States, and I've said this before, the only person dumber than someone who loves MAGA, a member of MAGA, is a Canadian member of MAGA. We're watching the United States turn into a fucking police state. We're watching the United States and the Trump regime tank the US dollar, kill the economy, jail Canadians and people from around the world and migrants. And then Jeff Rath, walking diabetes. Jeff Rath, who's got law society complaints as long as my leg. Jeff Rath is leading a movement of other Albertans that are going, that looks way better than where I live. I want to go there. I want Alberta to be that. That's the stuff that blows my mind today as I think about the province of Alberta. I think, what are you doing? What are you watching? Are you not paying attention? But a lot of these people live in a silo. They live in this victim silo where they're not going to open themselves up to any other information. And there's this movement called Leaving MAGA that I wish people in Alberta, people that used to believe in Danielle Smith, people that used to think the UCP was a great party, because it's a cult too. This is a cult of personality. It's a cult of populism. Generally speaking, she's gone and gathered all the marginalized assholes and extremists and low IQ individuals, and she is targeting them with information to prop her up, to give her the mantle and the power in a province where she should not be the premier. She should not be the premier of that province. The skullduggery when she came to her leadership review, which you were all over. I mean, there is no way, but she's managed to cobble it together. She's literally and I mean this, she's literally Donald Trump in a pantsuit, for fuck's sakes. But she's better at it.
I agree, but there are different ways that you can lead. And become a governor or a premier or a prime minister. And you can actually bring forward policies which actually may not even be popular, and then convince people that this is the right thing to do, and lead that way and affect positive change. Or you can simply find a parade and go in front of it and pretend that you're leading that parade.
Mm.
It's an easy way, right? It's an easy way of doing it. So, Donald Trump, when you think about it from a political perspective, if your only goal was to win elections, you don't care about the country, you don't care about making people's lives better, you don't care about peace on earth, but all you want to do is retain power, he's brilliant. He tapped into an anger out there, into dissatisfaction, and people have various reasons for being unhappy. Either they're marginalized because of their race, or because of their income, or because of their education, or things just don't go right in a lot of people's lives.
Mm.
And then this sort of successful guy whom they saw on TV running a fake show, firing people left and right, comes out to them and says, "Dean, none of this is your fault. You're a good guy. You work hard. You try really hard, but things just don't go right for you because these bastards are taking advantage of you. It is your boss. It is your leader. It is your bank, and then you find an external enemy. Whether it's the Jews during World War II, or the Mexicans in the United States." Or the Polish and Czech and Ukrainian workers during Brexit, you find an enemy and say, if not for those people, you would be successful. None of
Mm.
this is your fault. And if you're that guy, I don't blame them. I understand the psychology. The guy, he really is trying hard. Things are just not working out. He says, finally somebody gets me. Finally somebody understands me. He speaks my language. He may not be like me because he's a billionaire, but he seems to tap into my feelings, my anger, and that buys you that buys you
An army.
an army. And that's exactly what he's doing, and that's what Danielle Smith was doing. None of us like being locked up during COVID at home wearing masks, but you know what, those of us who could work from home, we had office jobs, we did okay. We managed to get laptops in and work online and do all that. But if you were the guy working in Canadian Tire changing tires, you couldn't do it from home. Your pay got cut. You maybe lost your job because people weren't driving anymore. So then you look at the office crowd and you say, those bastards, uh, again, they are okay. I'm not okay. So you are against, the mandates that were put together during COVID. So it sort of replicates itself over and over again. And these guys, like Alberta's Danielle Smith and Donald Trump and many MAGAs, they were just spotting those guys and feeding into it. And instead of being leaders and saying, look, I'm sorry, but you have to stay at home because at this point in time, that's the best we know, and science dictates that we do it. And we will put programs in place to supplement your income if you can't change tires anymore. They said, no, this is bullshit. You're right. You should be angry. And those guys who are still doing their office jobs and making maybe even more money than they ever did before, they are at fault. So it's cheap politics, but it buys votes. And we need to figure out a way how we reach out into these people. And that's why, with my Canadian Forever Canadian, I don't see it as a fight me against separatists. I'm hoping that a lot of these separatists, through the website that we will be launching soon, and our 3-month campaign across the province, that we will be able to convince them, or at least get them to the point where they start asking themselves questions about how viable it would be for Alberta to be a separate country, a separate state within a landlocked Canada,
Mm.
especially in a world where our longest time ally and best trading partner ever, United States, is not so friendly towards us anymore. Now, is this where you want to go? Is this what you want to join? On what terms would you be joining that country? If Donald Trump is willing to screw Canada over, what makes you think that he would all of a sudden be so friendly to the province of Alberta? So, I'm hoping that these questions will start percolating in people's minds, and that 10% of those convinced that they want to separate, maybe we will drop it to a lower percentage.
Well, you're off to the races. Forever Canadian is the movement website coming very, very soon. Thomas Lukaszuk is our guest. You can follow him on Twitter. You can follow him on Substack. Little used Substack. Got to get you into using Substack more. There's lots of
I
good
do.
people here.
Yeah, I do. I have to figure that out.
Yeah, well, I'll help you with it. And I highly recommend you follow Thomas. He is with a long list of other hardy Canadians that love Canada, love the province of Alberta, which gets a bad name because it's been misrepresented by a bunch of fucking morons who hate Canada. I mean, like, listen, I'll end with this. Danielle Smith saying that she believes in a united Canada and a sovereign Alberta within Canada is the most bullshit statement I've ever heard in my life. I know the content of that woman's character. This is the same woman that's under RCMP investigation for fraud to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. Read a report today, don't know if it's true, that Carrie Tate, who's the one that broke the story about all of the alleged corruption and self-dealing with donors, was cased by fucking detectives and reporters and threatened by reporters. It was reported in the Globe and Mail, and it all goes back to Danielle Smith. It's like a fucking criminal enterprise out there, Thomas.
Well, things are pretty scary, and this story about Carrie Tate that broke in Globe and Mail today, I tell you, it sends chills down my spine because when you have a very reputable investigative reporter in one of our two major national papers, and I tell you, before they print a story, that story gets vetted by legal teams over and over again because they don't take chances. When we know now that private investigators were hired, that were following her, that they somehow replicated her phone number and were making phone calls using her phone number, and are intimidating her so that she doesn't report any further on what probably is the biggest scandal in the history of our province, because like you said, it goes into hundreds of millions of dollars of procurement for medical services that seems to be going through the hands of one single friend of the Premier of Alberta. That is scary, and when I put out that on social media today, my comment was, this isn't happening in Russia. This is actually happening in Alberta, because you read stories like that. When a reporter writes a story that's not positive about Putin, and all of a sudden he falls out of a window. This is pretty interesting, and I hope that we start realizing that this is happening in Canada. To end this, we've been so lucky for so long as Canadians, and that's why I'm so passionate about Canada, to the point that we are almost naive in a certain sense, because we have what I believe to be the best country in the world. We have an amazing policing system, amazing judicial system, where fairness happens. We don't worry about being threatened or persecuted by government or locked up in the middle of the night because
reasonable limitations, full freedom of speech. Right. Yep.
But all of a sudden, things are changing. There are mechanisms that are at play that should start concerning us. And if we're not vigilant, democracy and justice are very fragile. And we're seeing how they are deteriorating in the United States in real time. We need to be very cautious and very protective of our system, because if we're not, same thing will happen here.
Why do you think Danielle Smith wants to start her own police force?
Good question.
Listen, we're not far. Alberta is not far. It is on the precipice. And Alberta, if you don't like what's going on in the United States right now, be vigilant. Follow Thomas. Read more. Get out of your silo. If you're having questions and you're a member of Danielle Smith's cabal and you're like, things aren't adding up, chasing reporters down, following people, tailing reporters, threatening reporters, $700 million in procurement money that just goes through the hands of allegedly one individual. The denial of science, the denial of disease, the denial of gender affirming treatment, the denial that trans kids are basically trans kids, right? I mean, Alberta is not far away from, we call it, what I used to call it Alberta Bama, but I'm being serious. This is the same woman who chased Donald Trump down at his golf course with Kevin O'Leary just to get a picture so that she could put it in the fucking newspaper, so that she could send a message via the bat signal back to her Trump-loving base that, don't worry, I'm friends with Trump. I got this. And she doesn't got this. Like, he's killing crude oil. He's killing futures. He is destroying everything that he touches, and they want that. So heads up, my good friends in Alberta. Listen to Thomas Lukaszuk. Follow him anywhere you can. Forever Canadian. Look for the website. Look to see how you can help. Look to see how you can unite Canada. Look to see how you can blunt what appears to be, just a repeat of what's going on in the States, just done so much more poorly that it's probably not going to work. And that's what I'm counting on. I'm counting on you and all the rest of the people in my home province. That is my home province, to do the right thing and to stand up for Canada. And congratulations, dude. Like, I've been watching you from afar. This is the first chance we've gotten to do this. You and I have talked several times, and I'm a massive fan of what you do, because you do it with character, you do it with values, and you do it with virtues.
Thank you, Dean.
Alberta would be very lucky to have you as the premier of that province one day. I truly mean that.
Well, I have no political aspirations. I'm doing this because I'm passionate about it. But yes, we will need volunteers to collect the signatures and petitions. They will have to register themselves with Elections Alberta. And if you can't do it, just find a nearest volunteer and sign the petition. I really hope that we send a strong signal to the rest of Canada and to the world that this country cannot be divided, that we're strong. We are a good ally to our partners. And this crazy separatist talk is just a hiccup. And I want business to be confident that Canada, no matter what province, is a good place to invest in.
Totally agree. Good luck dodging measles. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
buddy. Thomas Lukaszuk, ladies and gentlemen. He is just a Canadian dude from Poland. Family escaped communism. Middle of the night, came to Canada, loves it so much, became the deputy premier. Now he is leading the charge in Alberta to keep Alberta Canadian and to get rid of Danielle Smith. I meant what I said. I can't open up Twitter or social media. I'm not on Twitter that much anymore. And see another ICE raid or see another Donald Trump Epstein files cover up story and think it's even remotely possible for anybody with a functional brain in the province of Alberta to go, that's where we need to go. That's what we need to do. And listen, Thomas was way nicer to you than I'll be. You, you're victims. The MAGA cult, Maple MAGA cult, it's just a collection of victims. Politicians went and collected victims and religious morons. People that don't understand science. People that can't reason. People that have shitty ability to critically think. Like none. And they're like, follow us, we'll fix your life. Look at the United States. Huh? Look at all those poor people that voted for Donald Trump, Latinos for Trump, that are in CCOT in El Salvador. Donald Trump is going to show you the Epstein files. Yep, no. That movement is Alberta right now. And Alberta, if that's what you want. And by the way, this whole thing about you being your own country, but using our money and our passports, fuck no. You don't get any of it. And you don't get any of our health care. None of your pension. We keep that too. Give you a little piece, the representative portion. You're going to have to come up with all that all your own policing, every budget, every piece of infrastructure that comes from the federal government, gone. And here's the great part. The Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, says to Danielle Smith weekly, we're going to build those pipelines. And Danielle Smith goes on. It's crazy to me. Danielle Smith will go on TV or she'll, another fucking fake press conference. Well, she'll be like, oh, we don't get those pipelines. I've told Mark Carney, I don't believe him. She's fighting with herself. She's fighting with the federal government that agrees with her. No word of a lie. We're going to be building pipelines because it's good for Canada. And it's great for Alberta. And she's like, no, I'm fighting for those pipelines. He's like, you got your pipelines. I'm fighting you. Yeah, you don't have to. You got them. Pipelines, natural gas. Got to get it coast to coast. We need to get our raw materials out of Canada. We need to become an energy superpower. It's just... It's wild. You are marks. We are marks. We're not citizens that they're here serving. She definitely isn't. And Donald Trump, not a chance. Canada, America, we share so many beautiful commonalities, friendships. The vast majority of Canadians and Americans are not like Alberta and the Trump regime. We're not. You have a chance to take back your province, Alberta. Like America, you got a chance to take your entire country back. You have a chance to get the Epstein files, right? And to uproot espionage that's been happening in your country for 30, 40 years, maybe forever, who knows? Take advantage of that opportunity. Anyway, I love you, Alberta. Jeffrey Rath, not so much. Danielle Smith. Okay, right. What a day. 3 lives. Thanks everybody for joining me. I know it's a lot of me today, and I apologize. I'm sick of me. So I'm gonna take off and go have some dinner. Tacos tonight, I think. I think I'm doing tacos. I don't know. But kick your feet up, because I truly do believe that at the end of any referendum, at the end of whatever is going to end Donald Trump, sounds like the Epstein files in Russia, good people always win. Democracy wins. Progress wins. Victims never do, because they keep blaming other people. It's like a circle jerk of idiots. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks, Thomas, for joining us. Don't forget, Forever Canadian website. Look for it soon. Follow him on Twitter, anywhere you can follow Mr. Lukaszuk. Thomas Lukaszuk, Lukazzuk, former Deputy Premier of Alberta, Forever Canadian. Stamp it, stamp it, stamp it, stamp it. Follow it, and make sure you share it. And I'll make sure I do the same thing on my Substack. Don't forget, you can go and subscribe to my Substack if you like. I'd love that. Just over 30,000 followers now. Paid or free, doesn't matter. Right now, we've also got a 50% off an annual subscription, so you never pay more. Got a really lovely note from a lady named Pamela today, who's like, thank you, I can afford this. And the fact that I never have to pay more for the rest of my life means a lot to me. It means I get access and I get information, and I don't feel like I'm getting ripped off. That is the entire goal. We want you to come with us. We're talking about democracy. We're talking about solutions. None of us are victims. So let's get all the solution people going in one way. Subscribe. DeanBlundell.substack.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thanks so much, everybody in Canada, for joining us, and my American friends for popping in as well, learning a little bit about what we deal with up here on a much smaller scale. We know what you're dealing with down there, and we are with you. We'll do this together. We'll keep going on this journey as long as we can, for democracy, for each other. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you soon.